Good morning and welcome to the August 23rd, 2018 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, there are speaker request forms to the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the August 9th, 2018 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes, is hereby opened. Galen made the motion to approve and Karen seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Good morning. Item number 2 is 18 VA 003, a variance request to reduce the minimum required side yard setback that abuts a street from 20 feet to 6 feet for a proposed single-family dwelling and attached garage. Property is located at 1221 12th Street. Property is zoned low-density residential district, as are properties to the north, south, east, and west. Aerial views showing what was previously on the property. Actually, the shed is still there, but the structure, which is shown here, was destroyed by fire, and so the applicant is proposing to rebuild a two-story dwelling with a attached garage, which would be in this area to the south. You can also see that Fairview Street is dedicated right away. However, it does not continue through to the west, and that would be going up a hill. It basically serves as a driveway to the property to the south. Future land use is, I believe, low-density neighborhood, so a single-family dwelling would be a permitted use in that district. This property is also located in a historic district and has been through Historic Preservation Committee review and approval, and was just on council for review and approval and was approved on Monday. Showing the major street plan with West Boulevard as a collector street to the east. Site plan showing the proposed dwelling and attached garage. So in this shaded area is where it does not meet the minimum required 20-foot setback, and that would be from a street. Otherwise, with a side yard setback, an 8-foot setback would be required if it wasn't against a street. Elevations of the proposed dwelling and the two-car garage. They could potentially build a one-stall garage and require less of a setback reduction, but what they're proposing and what was approved by Historic Preservation was a two-car. Here we're looking at the site. You can see the elevation change to the back side of the property where it goes up. Looking north along 12th Street, directly across the street, looking other neighborhood areas, and then there you can see where, Fairview Street looks like it's gravel, although there is curb, but it's leading up to, you can see the elevation change there from 12th Street. And then looking up to where it basically serves as a driveway to that adjacent property, and the topography constraints to the west. It is not built through and hasn't been, and I don't believe there are plans to in the future. And looking at the site, some of that elevation change on that south side of the property, and the wide boulevard, which is in the right-of-way. And these are some of the applicants' photos of the site. Because they could propose a smaller reduction in setback and the fact that they could build a single-family dwelling on the property without the need of a variance. Staff is recommending that the variance request be denied. However, if the zoning board is looking at potentially granting the variance, we'd request the stipulation that upon submittal of a building permit, a site plan showing the location of the major drainage easement be submitted, demonstrating that the proposed structure does not encroach into the easement. With that, the applicant is in the audience. Are there any questions for staff?
Thanks, Fletcher. I don't have any lights up. John, do you have one?
Is there anything in the future road design that would show Fairview continuing?
No, we have no plans to reconstruct Fairview or to
Ever.
do any work on Fairview.
Ever?
We don't look out forever. We have a 5-year plan that's funded. It's not in our 5-year plan.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to insert myself with a follow-on question, Todd. It looks like Forest Hills actually sort of curves into what would be the continuation of this, if I was looking at the street plan correctly. Is Forest Hills improved to the west of where Fairview would continue into? Or
Yeah,
Forest Drive, maybe?
That's 600 feet or so to the west. That section of Fairview is improved. There is curb and gutter and asphalt on that section.
Okay,
But there is about a 600-foot section where there is no.
right. Okay, thank you. Justin?
Thanks. I got 2 questions for staff. You said that Fairview, where it's adjacent to the property, is it currently right-of-way, or it's not, and it never will be?
It is currently right away.
It is currently. Are you going to vacate it because you're never going to improve it? Or is it going to stay as right-of-way?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
so Fairview currently has a road in it. It's the gravel road, and it serves as access to the property across the street to the south of this house. Typically, when we see that it is serving as an access, we would not vacate it so that we don't have a landlocked property.
Okay. Okay. My next question, you talked about a drainage easement. Can you show where that's at on the property?
Appears there's a major drainage easement which would be on the west half of the property.
Okay, and the
So
current,
potentially with an attached garage, if it was going here, if it's going to be granted, we just want to ensure that either the major drainage easement wasn't recorded, but it appears that I have a document that shows that, or that, you know, the structure doesn't encroach into it, or if it will, that they vacate the major drainage easement, or portion of it.
okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicki?
just a little more clarification on your question and John's. So Fairview is not identified on the major street plan. All of the properties along this area have access based on the streets that you and Todd discussed. So even though there is a driveway currently in that right-of-way that would preclude the vacation, we would not see that there is an issue with the street remaining in its current condition, since it is only functioning as a driveway to an adjacent property.
Thank you. John, did I cut you off? I have you up here again. Okay. Kurt?
Well, my main question was about the drainage easement, but then I heard, Fletcher, did you say that that hasn't been recorded?
No, I have a major drainage easement that looks like it is on the property. However, it'd be making sure at Register of Deeds that it was recorded.
Okay. So would one of the stipulations be that if it's not recorded, they get it recorded?
We'll have to take a look at what the application that was associated with, if it required it, and if Public Works Department still requires it.
Okay. And then my other question is, you know, looking at the pictures, there was a camper sitting in the driveway. Is that about where the edge of the garage would be? Or would it be farther into Fairview? Like, yeah, that one there.
Or would it?
Good morning. Roughly the other side of the hitch is right about in this area is where it is. From where the tires are on the south side or the south side of the camper, 6 feet from them tires was where the garage would roughly start.
6 feet to the right?
Yes, to the right, towards the house, to the north. Oops, I'm not very good at this. So where the tires are going back to the foundation, to the right of those tires, about 6 feet is where the edge of the garage is. From the inside of the curb and gutter on, right up here on Fairview, we're 23 feet to where the garage would be. So from this point to the start of the garage, and the camper's on an angle and the picture's on an angle, so it's kind of hard to see the exact layout, but right in here we have 23 feet. In that area.
With the topography there, you know, the slope coming down the edge of the road there, that doesn't leave a lot of room for drainage through there. If indeed that major drainage needs to go through that area, I guess that would be my main concern.
Okay.
That, you know, you could be plugging up that drainage, but I think there needs to be some work to show that it's not.
Actually, if we look at the aerial view, I can explain where it would not encroach on that.
Mr. Streeter, I'm going to try to get the rest of the questions for staff, and I have your speaker request, and I'll give you a chance to expound, unless, Kurt, you have...
Well, as long as my question gets answered eventually, yeah,
Okay,
that's fine.
sorry. Karen?
Thank you. My question is, who owns the land to the west? Up or south, whatever, up the hill?
Doug Noyce and
We might
Here's
have to
Doug
get you
Noyes.
back up here. Thanks. What was that?
It appears that he's saying Doug Noise.
Pardon?
Doug Noise.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just thinking about the future, and if I know that it's a top hill and it looks pretty steep, but I've seen a lot of people build a house on the edge of a hill, and I just want to make sure that there's going to be adequate room if we do this for that road to continue up somehow if needed. That was my only question, really. I don't know if anybody has an answer for that, but that's, I guess, a comment. I'll just make that as a comment.
The Fairview is dedicated as public right-of-way, so they're not vacating
No,
the
I
public
know.
right-of-way. So it'd still be able to be used as access.
True, true. It's just we're encroaching more closely to the right-of-way. That was my comment is all. Thanks.
John?
So if it's not a street, could they vacate the setback?
If we go over a little bit of history, back in, 2009, the property owner at the time did try to, or 2007, they did try, 2003, they requested a variance to reduce this was the previous property line. So they requested a variance to reduce the front yard setback to 6 feet for this existing structure. The zoning board of adjustment at that time denied the variance request, and subsequently they vacated the 19 feet of Fairview Street on the north and the south sides of Fairview in order to get the setback they needed for that existing structure. So.
Thanks, Fletcher. That's good information. John?
Well, I'm confused because if it's not identified as a street, why do we have a setback from it?
Mr. Chair, it is identified as a street. It's not identified on the major street plan as a collector street or an arterial street. It's a residential street, a local street. So the setback that is being requested today, they need to be 20 feet from a street. If a lot line abuts a street, it's known as a side lot line that abuts a street requiring a 20-foot setback. In this case, that's not a street on the major street plan. We don't anticipate that it will have a lot of traffic now or in the future based on the topographic constraints to the west. And the fact that they've already vacated 19 feet, there's a minimum right-of-way that if we're going to retain it as a street, we have to preserve that minimum right-of-way, and that's what we have there today. So we would not be in support of vacating anything else. Since there is a driveway, since there is a lot to the south of this that does use that street right-of-way for access. So we need to preserve the right-of-way for that point of access to that property, but it is functioning more as a driveway than a street.
It has to be 20 feet because it's two-story.
Because it abuts a street, it has to be 20 feet, even if it were a one-story. Remember, Fairview is a street. It's not on the major street plan, identified as a collector and arterial. It's functioning as a driveway because it's only serving one lot and there's a gravel driveway in it. But it is still a street on the city street system plan.
Okay, thanks.
Justin?
Thanks. So to piggyback on that, if I heard Fletcher correctly, if we were looking at the adjacent lot as just a home with a driveway, 8 foot would be the requirement.
12 foot would be the requirement.
12 foot would be the requirement. Okay, so then they,
Let me back up. So our setback requirement is, if you're two-story, you're 12 feet from the lot line. If you have a one-story garage on that side of your house attached, and the garage is more than 20 feet back, then you can be 8 feet. So if that is more than 20 feet, then the side yard setback would be 8 feet.
and is that this case here?
Is that the case here, Fletcher?
And where I'm going with it is, in my eyes, yes,
Yes.
Fairview, you said yes, Fletcher, sorry.
Yes.
Okay,
It looks like it's 25 feet.
okay. So, in my eyes, really 8 foot would meet what's a reasonable standard for what it is. I mean, the Fairview, yes, it's right of way, but I'm hearing from everybody that it's gonna continue to only be a driveway. So it's basically abutting or adjacent to a residential property, in theory, right? So, is there a way to get to 8 feet? I know you're reusing an existing slab, so you're kind of locked there, I get that, but is there a way to get to 8 feet? Because then in my eyes, I think you've kind of met what the city would typically require in that situation. It's a little bit unique, I think, but is that possible?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vicki.
In visiting with the applicants before the meeting, they shared with me some constraints that are created by a retaining wall that runs along the east side of the home, which makes them have to come farther south with that garage in order to have full access to it. And when you do take testimony from them, I think that will probably help assist with why they're asking for the setback they are.
Okay.
I think it's probably a good time to call you guys up. Jeff and Charlene Schreeder, I hope I got your names right.
Sure.
You can correct me for the record if you
Close
like.
enough.
Close enough. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for everything this morning, for being here and stuff.
Identify yourself and
My name's Jeff Schrader.
And I'm Charlene Schrader.
We live at 1215 12th Street. We're the house just to the south, or the north of the structure that we're looking to build at 1221. And for the last question that we had, if you look right at this portion right here, this is the existing retaining wall. And there's another picture that I'll get to that shows it. But where it has the radius there, that is actually 10 feet from the house to the outside of the radius. So with our request of having a 25-foot garage, that gives us actually only 15, well, less than 15 feet, about 13 feet of straight access into the garage without having to turn around the radius therein. So here would be the garage. And right there. Between the radius line and the garage, we only have 6 feet in there. So gaining access to it is going to be difficult. A single car garage, we wouldn't really be able to have access with a vehicle in there. So that was where we proposed the 25-foot. We felt that that gave us enough room to get a vehicle in there easily daily. And then the other portion would be for our motorcycles, roughly, you know, for where the radius is by the house. So basically, we're using it as a one-car garage and a couple motorcycles. Also on this picture for the major drainage, there is a swell that is behind the house. The shed there that sits on top of the hill is at the base of the swell. At the edge of the major drainage, I would say it's roughly 2.5 to 3 foot higher at this portion than at this portion. And the drainage is to come around here with looking at it. When we do our landscaping with the garage, we plan on maintaining that swell, and that's all going to have to be surveyed and done so that we have proper drainage from the backside of our house and also where the major drainage is on the hillside. One thing I'd like to point out, there's only really 2 locations for a garage or a shop or anything like that, is along the south side of the home, and then also on the east side of the home where the shed is, but that's in the major drainage. And I believe it was 1998, there was a mudslide here on this hill. And the neighbors are really, you know, that have lived there for years, are really hesitant about doing anything on the hillside. Everyone that we spoke to, and we went around and we spoke to a lot of the neighbors, we showed them the plans and everything. We also had a letter signed that we turned in with Sarah Hansel, and that from 8 of the neighbors in the neighborhood. And also to the, what would that be, the southwest of it, there's another home up there, and we even went up to him and spoke with him about that. And their only concern about the construction was that we didn't build on the hillside because of the
You gotta write on it.
what's that?
Go ahead and write on it. There you go. Then
You
there
can see
it. There you go.
right here and here, you can see they went in and they cut these. And they also did the major drainage right through here when they did that back in the late 90s. And everyone's concern is that we don't damage any of that to create any problems with the drainage and also with any mudslides that they had previously. Let me go to this one view here.
You want to go up there and clear that?
Okay. How do we?
Go
Right
up
there?
here.
Go ahead.
You have to do your pen.
Oh.
They're now clear. There you
You're
go.
better at that. On this picture here, it shows the edge of the garage, or the edge of the foundation that we're using at this point. And here's the radius I showed you in the previous picture, the going around here, and the 10 feet. Right here is where the garage we're looking at, that would be the edge of the garage. Previously, they had a retaining wall going along the back side of the hill and coming around that was about 2.5 feet. Our plan is to do a retaining wall, a foundation wall going all the way around there to support the garage. And we're actually going to make it higher so that we have easier mowing on the side, and it also drains it properly to the curb and gutter in the front of the home.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicants from the commission? That spark anything? Galen?
I think you answered my question because I was also with Kurt on wondering about that drainage, where the water flows and how that's going to work. And it seems like you guys have a pretty good handle on how that's going to work. And I think building this is not going to interfere with that drainage easement. So I would lean to support this just because it's, as we've all discussed, it's not a street that will be constructed. It's not going to be injurious to the neighborhood or anybody else. So I think I would propose to make a motion to approve this, approve this variance, citing reason number 4 that it's in harmony with the general purposes and intent, not be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to public welfare. So, and again, noting the stipulation that we want to see the major drainage easement be recorded. You stipulated earlier.
Vicki, perhaps you could clarify
Thank you,
that
Mr. Chair.
requested
If the motion
stipulation.
maker would, I think the testimony from the property owner today was very helpful. There are some topographic constraints relating to the west side of the property, as well as the necessity to retain that retaining wall along the front of the residence that makes for a smaller building envelope that functions for that garage. And so I think that those topographic constraints lend themselves for justification if it is your intent to grant the variance.
Sure, I agree with that. There's some topographical constraints as well.
And the added stipulation on the major drainage easement is just that it's shown on the building permit plans. Is that what we were looking for?
So we will, if it is with the drainage easement stipulation as noted by Fletcher, and in essence what that means is that when they come in for the building permit, they'll need to go to Register of Deeds and secure a copy of that recorded drainage easement, and if it's not there, potentially record one, and then demonstrate that they are not impacting that easement with this construction.
And to the applicants, does that sound like a fair stipulation? It sounded like you wanted to protect that drainage easement as well.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Mike, does that work for you as a second? Okay, so Galen made the motion to approve the reduced side yard setback abutting a street from 20 feet to 6 feet 2 inches due to the topographical constraints of this lot and that it's not injurious to the neighborhood, with the added stipulation that the major drainage easement be shown and protected on the building permit plans. Mike Galler seconded that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I think that's our last item on zoning board of adjustment. I'd look for a adjournment motion. Rachel? And a second. Mike seconded that motion. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now commence the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for August 23rd, 2018. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item, please fill out a speaker request form. We'll start with the consent calendar. Items 1 through 4 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 2, 18 CA 002. The Rapid City Planning Commission's action on this item is final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 4 that staff would like to remove? Are there any items 1 through 4 that any planning commissioner would like removed? And we're without audience members, so I can skip that one. The chair would look for a motion then to approve the consent calendar items 1 through 4 in accordance with staff's recommendation. Karen made the motion to approve. Galen seconded that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 5 is an ordinance amendment to allow accessory dwelling units in residential districts within our Title 12 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. As you are aware, we've been visiting with you a little bit about this, discussed it at our Coffee with Planners. 2 nights ago, we had a meeting at the West Hills Boulevard Neighborhood Association, taking as much input from the public as we can as we're bringing this document forward. We are requesting today that you continue this item to the September 20th Planning Commission meeting as we're working on some final edits. We just want to make sure we're bringing the best document possible forward for your consideration.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody have a motion to continue? All right, Galen made the motion and Mike Kwasny seconded that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. One discussion item that I missed last time. Welcome to Jason Solomon, our new liaison. I promise every meeting won't be like last week. I'll have time to welcome you. Staff items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Attorney's Office has advised us that we need to take special precaution on items that are being continued. There was some decisions made by the court system relating to publication issues on an ordinance that went through the county. And they've advised us that whenever we continue an item, we need to meet our notification requirement again. That may mean that letters need to be sent out again to the area property owners, and that the notices in the paper need to be submitted. We just wanted you to be aware that when you are considering continuing something, such as a rezone or an ordinance amendment, those require 2 publications before the first hearing at Planning Commission, so we can't always just continue to the next meeting. Those would have to be continued out a month. Conditional use permits, plan developments, those could just go to the next meeting and we could still meet the notification requirement. We'll be on our toes, and when we see that it's the direction of the Planning Commission to continue something, we'll try to ensure that we're continuing it to the right date to meet that publication requirement that's new. We've not done this before, but to ensure that we too don't have issues with someone noting that we've missed a publication, we want to make sure that we're doing it as correctly as we can. So that's something new, and we'll be discussing it at meetings when we see something being continued.
Thanks, Vicki. Kurt?
So who's ever requesting the continuation, the applicant, then they have to do the second, start over with the notification process?
So if there was an error in the publication and it was because we entered some information incorrectly and had the wrong section number noted in something, or maybe the wrong address, since we don't actually do legals, we do general descriptions. If it's our error, then we would send out the letters and publish again without any additional fee. If they request it because they're not ready to come before you, or it's an incomplete application on their part, then we would continue it, and they would need to send the letters out again and pay an additional publication fee.
Perfect. Thanks.
Sounds good. Any other items for us today? Look for a motion to adjourn. Rachel made the motion, and Mike seconded that motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
So just because they had a long meeting last time, they had to make this one short.